Welcome to the Binge Dietitian podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Sumner, registered dietitian, focusing on helping men and women end binge eating, end food guilt, and finally say yes to life. This podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not substitute for medical and personalized advice. Hi guys, welcome to the Binge Dietitian podcast. And in this episode, we're going to be introducing our first guest, and this is Cati Jakab. And she's an amazing person who just shares amazing things about her struggles with binge eating. And she also shares amazing videos on what I eat in a day on TikTok, which have been helping so many people. But enough about me. I just want to share and ask, who are you, Cati? And just give us an introduction on who you are.
Hi, Jonathan. First of all, thank you so much for having me. This is my first time doing a podcast interview, like talking about BED. And first of all, I think it's very cool that you're bringing awareness to this because I feel like sometimes BED is something that is not talked about enough, binge eating disorder. So kind of just to give you a little background of who I am. As you guys know, my name is Cati. I started posting videos on TikTok about maybe 6 months ago about what I eat in a day as I recover from BED. And that made me realize like how many people out there actually struggle with the same thing. And it just created this little community on TikTok where like now we all support each other. We share, our struggles with each other, tips with each other. So like, we help each other get through it. So that's basically how I got to this point and how I'm guessing Jonathan found out about me and how I ended up here.
Yeah, that's amazing. Wow. So it's only 6 months and you just garnered a massive community.
Yeah, I think I started like back in February. I'm not sure how many months that is. I'm guessing about 6 months. But yeah, the first couple of videos were not actually about what I eat in a day. They were like me sharing tips and tricks of what I personally did to like, deal with my eating disorder. And, for what I eat in a day videos are so popular on like YouTube and TikTok and Instagram even. So I thought like, oh, why don't I try that out? And like the fact that I narrate what goes through my mind while I'm eating, like people that struggle with the same eating disorder, I guess that just really like people felt connected to that. Like people didn't know there were other people who struggle with the same thing. So I feel like everyone that goes to the comments and sees like, wow, there's so many people that like feel the exact same way I do, that just already makes you feel supported. So it's like a comfort thing, like people come back to my page for like comfort and knowing that they're not alone through this struggle, So I guess that's why it's been like successful. Like, like I'm trying to help as many people as I can. And people in the comments, most of the time, like they're very kind to each other and they just lift each other up. So, it's like a safe space, I call it on my account.
Oh, that's amazing. What started the What I Eat in a Day videos? Or did it just come out of nowhere?
Well, actually, so when you struggle with binge eating disorder, it's a lot of a mental thing. Like a lot of people develop that eating disorder for different reasons. For me personally, one of the many reasons why I developed it was because I had a very low self-esteem. I didn't like the way I looked. I spent many of my teenage and like college years just trying to lose weight and being as skinny as I could. And I'm sure you are like aware of the like movement of like body positivity and just like loving yourself the way you are. So when I started my journey to recover from binge eating disorder, TikTok just started showing me videos of like girls on the app, like that are not traditionally like, it's not the traditional like skinny, big boobs, like that you will like expect to see. Like these were like bigger girls that were showing themselves in bikinis and being comfortable with themselves and encouraging other girls to like also just love their bodies the way they are, which for me and a lot of people who struggle with binge eating disorder, that's a huge thing because the reason why you develop the eating disorder in the first place is because you're not happy with your body. You're trying to change it. So you restrict everything you eat. You cut out so many foods, which at the end makes you build such an unhealthy relationship with food.
Mm.
So I actually started that inspired me to post videos about body positivity. So if you go back to like my videos from like February, March, I'm actually posting like the same type of videos that these girls like inspired. Like I'm posting videos like showing my stretch marks, my cellulite, like all the body parts that I don't like, just to like force myself to get comfortable with it and accept my body the way it was. And it was honestly such a big part of my eating disorder recovery because the more I accept my body, the least I feel like I need to go on a diet and lose weight. So I personally believe like body positivity and like having like self-esteem is like a huge connection with like binge eating disorder and like, having a healthy relationship with food.
Yeah, that's really, really helpful. And I was going to touch on the what I eat in a day videos because us dietitians or in the dietitian community, we're pretty against the what I eat in a day videos for
Really?
not for people struggling with binge eating or like the things you do where you raise
Yeah.
awareness, eat to how much your body needs. But there are some videos that if you just type what I eat in a day, you'd see people eating like 600 calories a day or 800
Oh,
a day.
I I do get what you mean.
Yeah,
Is it like because you guys don't like how some people portray like bad eating habits?
yeah,
Like,
because there are some
yeah,
people who promote they're probably like proud of their weight loss, but
exactly. Yeah.
they're probably promoting very unsustainable weight loss because that's only just one TikTok or one video. It doesn't represent like what might happen, maybe what happens after, maybe like in a day or two or a week or two, like a massive binge. Oh, 600 a day. Oh, I'm going to copy that because that person got like lots of weight loss really, really quickly.
I'm actually glad that you brought that up because um this is actually like a struggle that I had for like a few months. I was very stressed out. You know how TikTok updated their community guidelines this year and they were very strict about what people were posting. And they TikTok actually created a whole section of their community guidelines just for like eating, like and what people showed about like their eating habits and like anything related to eating disorders.
Mm,
So when I started posting my videos of what I eat in a day, I did some research and I found some very disturbing stuff on TikTok. Like I found like girls eating less than 500 calories a day. And like there were like a lot of like profiles dedicated just to showing how to lose weight in a very unhealthy way. So I'm guessing TikTok like caught up to that. They were realizing there were a lot of people in their app showing like at the end of the day, very unhealthy stuff to do. And so they created these guidelines. So these guidelines are so strict that I'm very careful with the way I have to do my what I eat in a day videos
mm,
because if I say the wrong thing, TikTok takes out my video and I could like lose my account. So a lot of people have actually asked in the comments, why do you say BED instead of binge eating disorder when I introduce my videos? I'm actually not allowed to say binge eating disorder on the app because the video gets taken down.
mm,
And of course, this is a struggle for creators like me who like are trying to bring awareness, just like what you are doing. You talk about this on your social platforms.
mm,
It's hard for us, but at the end of the day, for the people watching these videos, it's like a protection for them, which I understand. Like that's good for other people, especially young girls that might watch these videos and will try to follow whatever a skinny girl says to them. So I think actually like for everyone listening to this podcast, if you want to try it out for yourself, if you go on TikTok and you just type on the search bar binge eating disorder or anorexia or bulimia or any eating disorder related word, TikTok will actually take you to another page where you can get help. There's like a hotline and there are websites that you can visit. Like they are generally like trying to help you. But yeah, so like that's definitely a thing that a lot of people, like what you were mentioning earlier, a lot of people online post what I eat in a day videos that they just show really unhealthy eating habits. Like, I'm sure that me 3, 4, 5 years ago, I would have watched those videos and I would have followed them to the T. Like, I wouldn't have cared if they were healthy or not. I would have followed everything the girl says because I just want to be skinny. So I do understand where you're coming from, where like dietitians don't really like support these videos because it's a huge problem.
Yeah, but I do support your videos because you're trying you're trying to influence and promote what normal eating should look like, about having regular meals, regular snacks, enjoying the foods you crave, and just that balance of like there's more to life than just dieting.
Yes, yes, exactly. Like I try to be as honest as possible in my videos because I'm not gonna lie, like, and anyone who's listening to this and who also struggles with an eating disorder, um, it's very embarrassing. Like something as common as food that like everyone needs to have, people eat it multiple times a day, every day of their lives. The fact that something as simple as food takes control over your life, like it's just embarrassing, you know? Like, and I know myself and a lot of people who struggle with binge eating, like you feel weak. You feel like a lot of people describe it, even myself, as describe it as being addicted to food. And it's so embarrassing to say, like, you're addicted to food, something so basic and so common. So, a lot of times it is embarrassing to share what I eat in a day and how I'm feeling about it. But then I remind myself, like, how it helps so many other people who are feeling the exact same way. Like, they feel embarrassed about eating or about like having junk food. So, I feel like showing that to other people, they like, it validates their feelings. Like, the other day, I posted a video of myself eating McDonald's alone in the car. And the response I got was so overwhelming. Like, I didn't know so many people would eat alone by themselves in the car just because they're embarrassed of other people seeing them eating junk food.
Wow.
So it took a lot of me to post that video because it's so embarrassing. Like, I am ashamed of eating McDonald's in front of my mom, in front of my family, my friends. And the fact that so many other people do it too is just like, it's crazy to me, but like I try to be as honest as possible so other people understand, like, hey, like you're definitely not alone in this.
Hmm. Yeah, that's one of the key features of binge eating disorder, BED, is eating in secret. Because I posted
Yeah.
a video which kind of got viral. I was really overwhelmed by how much support there was because it was about a video of me. Um, like it's more of like that moment when you don't want anyone to see what you binged on, so you tuck it under to the bottom
Yeah.
of the bin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I completely understand that feeling. A lot of people they actually ask me about that. So I usually host a weekly binge eating support group on TikTok. It's like an hour-long session and people who struggle with BED, like they join and they ask questions and everyone in the comments just try to share tips and things that work for them. So we kind of just help each other out.
Mm.
And one of the questions that I get literally every single like live is how do you deal with like the shame of like binging in public? Like almost every single person they hide to have these binge eating episodes, which like you said is one of the main symptoms. And I remember I used to do this a lot more, and thankfully, like it has gotten better. I try not to eat food like by myself in my room. Like I force myself to be downstairs at a table with people around. Like I'm trying not to be ashamed of like eating food around other people. But I understand how it can be very hard for someone that's still like, at the beginning stages of recovering and like they're so ashamed of food that they have to do it by themselves.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds very, very difficult. And if anyone's struggling with bed or binge eating, you can always ask for help. You're never alone. And the reason why many people don't want to talk about binge eating is because there's so much stigma in society thinking
Yeah.
you're binging, you must be very lazy. What do you think about that?
That exactly what you just said. I'm very glad you brought that up because another reason why it's so embarrassing to struggle with this eating disorder and I'm very well aware what I'm about to say might sound very messed up, but this is the society we live in and it is the way it is. When you hear of someone struggling with, for example, like anorexia, like you already picture it in your mind, oh, they're going to be very skinny.
Mm.
And it's so messed up that like a lot of girls would be more than okay with suffering with something like anorexia because they will think, oh, well, at least you're skinny. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care about having an eating disorder as long as I'm skinny. And I know this myself because I've had this thought many times. I remember when I was back in like middle school and high school, like, so what? Like, you're skinny. Like, what do you have to complain about? But with binge eating disorder, is the complete opposite. When you think of someone struggling with binge eating, you picture this person being extremely obese, almost like a pig, like, oh, like this person cannot control themselves around food. They probably are so gross. They don't know how to control themselves. They probably eat junk food like all day, every day. And that's another stereotype. It's not like that at all. I've gotten like comments on TikTok saying there's no way she struggles with BED because I have like a normal body. Like anyone can struggle with binge eating. You could be underweight, regular weight, or overweight, and you could have a very unhealthy relationship with food and struggle with binges like every day of your life. Like it doesn't have a specific body type. And that's one of the main reasons why a lot of girls who struggle, or not even girls, guys, anyone who struggle with BED, they're scared to say it out loud because they will automatically assume, oh, you struggle with binge eating, you have no control around food, you're probably fat and like disgusting. So I get ashamed sometimes of telling people like, oh, I struggle with BED because I'm scared that they'll automatically think of me that way. So exactly what you just said is just shameful because of that.
Oh, yeah, it's so terrible. And you just touched on like shame and like frustration with struggling with binge eating. Are you happy to share a quick, what I could just call like the lowest low of your binge eating? And then you can also touch on what brought you out of that lowest low.
Yes. So that's a really good question because my like journey with binge eating has been so like there has been so many ups and downs. So for everyone listening right now who hasn't heard of me before, you're like listening to my story for the first time. I've actually struggled with binge eating since I was a kid. I just wasn't aware of it. And that is actually the case for a lot of people. So I just always assumed that the way I ate was my way of eating and it was normal. And it wasn't until about a year ago that I started seeing a therapist. And I was actually going to this therapist for anxiety and panic attacks. It had nothing to do with eating disorders or binge eating. And he's the one that diagnosed me with binge eating disorder.
Wow.
I feel like a lot of people can agree we all went through some changes during the pandemic. A lot of people started experiencing anxiety and like elevated stress. And I was one of those people. So I ended up having to reach out for some help and getting a therapist. So as I was working with this therapist on the anxiety that I got left over from the pandemic, um, once that went down and my life went back to normal, he started noticing how I would complain a lot about what I ate and how ugly and fat I felt and all my anxiety around food. And he told me like that I struggled from binge eating disorder. And at the beginning, I was so confused because I didn't even know that existed. I'm like, what is that? So he diagnosed me. Then I actually went to a psychiatrist. Diagnosed me with the same disorder, and they even offered me medication for it. For those of you that don't know, there is medication for it, but I didn't want to take that. I wanted to, try to fix it in a natural way. So I would say that my lowest low was right before I discovered what binge eating disorder was. I lost a lot of weight during the pandemic, and I have never been so proud of myself. I was barely eating anything during those months at the lockdown. My parents were concerned about me. I remember my stepdad even like he took me out for a walk. He said he had something important to talk to me about. He said that he was concerned that I was like way too skinny and that I was not eating.
Mm.
And I remember all I could think was, oh my God, like my dad thinks I'm so skinny, like I have a problem. Like, how messed up is that? Like, my own dad is worried that I am like losing too much weight. And all I could think of was, I was so proud because I was just skinny. Like, that for me was glory. Like, nothing mattered more than that. And after the pandemic, once things got back to normal, it just got even more strict. I remember joining a workout and diet program with my friends.
Mm.
And if you're a girl out there, you know that one of the biggest ways to bond with girls is to, I'm sorry, but it's to talk shit about yourself. Like you complain about, oh my God, I am so fat. I have so many stretch marks. My arms are so big. And girls just bond over that. Girls just bond about like being ugly and fat and how they want to, like get on a workout plan together and diet together. And that's just such a girly thing to do. So I remember me and like five, six of my friends, we all bought this program together. It was very strict. We couldn't eat basically anything for like the first 2 weeks, I think.
Okay.
We could only have protein. No, we couldn't even have fruit. We couldn't have dairy. We couldn't have anything with oil. We couldn't like the only thing we could have were eggs, canned tuna, and vegetables, and not even all vegetables. We had to have the low calorie ones. So that was definitely my lowest low. It was the most restrictive diet I've ever done. We were working out every single day at like 6 a.m., 7 days a week. And that just finished messing up my relationship with food. That was the worst I've ever been. And once I got out of that diet, I went crazy. I just ate everything I wanted, ate all the amounts I wanted. I had the worst binge eating episodes I've ever had, obviously, because I restricted myself so much, which is when my therapist, like, he was hearing all this stuff, and that's when he diagnosed me, and that's how I started my journey.
Yeah. Wow. That's a lot to go through. That's really, really restrictive. I can't believe.
Yeah, like I'm sure as a dietitian, you as a dietitian, like listening to all that, you probably know how like messed up and restrictive that is.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, like when you're like a girl or even a guy, like obsessed with like your body image, and you just care that society like accepts you as an attractive person, like you'll do anything for it.
Yeah. It's such a terrible thing. And I can't believe there's even those weight loss programs that are so restrictive out there.
And they're so normalized. Like everyone does them. They're everywhere. Like these, and I don't mean it in a bad way. I know that there are a lot of fitness coaches and like dietitians out there that they're generally just trying to help people. But at the end of the day, I think that a lot of people are just like monetizing on like people's insecurities
Yeah.
and like the fact that they know that there are a lot of people that will do literally anything to like lose weight and like be accepted by the society that we live in today. Because if you're a guy and you don't have a six pack, and if you're a girl and you're not extremely skinny, it's like you're not attractive.
Mm. Oh, that's terrible. Okay. Yeah. Well, we don't have much time at the moment, but
That's totally fine.
I would wish I could have talked to you much more. But Kati, if there's anything you would suggest to other people listening to this podcast on tips to stop binge eating, what would you recommend?
Wow, there's so much. But something that definitely like helped me is reach out for help.
Mm.
I know that it is very scary, and I know that you might feel judged, but this eating disorder is not understood by a lot of people. So just be aware that when you reach out for help or when you tell your family or your friends, they might not completely understand you, and that's okay. My own mom's still trying to wrap her head around the fact that like binge eating is an actual eating disorder. But ask for help. There are people out there that are willing to support you through what you're going through. And believe me, when the people around you know, that's when you will want to make efforts to get better. And the second biggest thing is educate yourself. So when I started like researching and reading about binge eating disorder, it's like I was reading a book about myself. It's like I understood myself more and I knew what I had to do to get better. So doing things like literally what me and Jonathan are doing today, like doing a podcast, like talking about eating disorders and binge eating, listening to things like that, watching YouTube videos of people talking about binge eating and what it feels like and what they did to get better, reading books about binge eating, which I thought that didn't exist, but there are so many books out there and like even self-help books with activities to like get through binge eating. Like there are so many resources out there that you don't think of, but the more you educate yourself and the more you know about the eating disorder, like the better you will get through it. And the last thing is, after like telling your family and friends and educating yourself, is getting out there and actually getting help. I work with a therapist. There is nothing to be ashamed of going to therapy for eating disorders. That's actually very common. And that's something that I 100% recommend. If you don't feel comfortable seeing a therapist or you don't have the resources to afford one, you can also join a local eating disorder group. If you just Google like local eating disorder groups in your area, you will be surprised by how many there are. And they're willing to offer a lot of resources as well. So those are like my three main things that you can do. And I promise if you do at least one of the three, like you will already be making so much progress.
I completely agree. And coming from a dietitian, I completely agree with every single one of them.
Yes.
There's such a wealth of information if you just look for it. And
Yes.
know that we should recognize that binge eating can be a problem and it can spiral you down into a rabbit hole of guilt and shame.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you as a dietitian, like I'm sure that if one of your patients like came up to you and told you, hey, like I have the feeling I might struggle with binge eating, you will give them resources and you will help them out. So if you have a dietitian that you work with or you feel comfortable working with a dietitian, 100% like talk to them as well because they'll help you out and they'll give you resources too. Just as the same as a therapist.
Yeah, that's amazing. Where can people find you to follow you?
If you guys are interested in following my journey and recovering with me, you can follow me on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram. I'm under Cati Jakab on all three platforms. I do share my what I eat in a day videos on all three, just because I know that not everyone goes on YouTube, Instagram, or TikTok. So it's just whatever your preference is. And if you message me on Instagram, I always reply because I try to help as many people as I can. And if you comment on my videos on any of the three platforms, I always answer to all the comments. I don't like to leave anyone out. And then lastly, on TikTok, I do host weekly lives. So you can join them. I usually do them once a week. And that way you can share, your personal struggles, what you've gone through. And I will help you out. People in the comments who struggle with the same thing, they will try to share tips and tricks on how to get better. And it's just a very supportive community all around and on either one of the platforms. So whatever platform you feel comfortable with, you can find me at. And you will have a community that will also help you along the way.
Definitely. And I'm going to be joining that community also.
Yes, perfect. I actually do have, sometimes I will invite a psychologist from Australia who I met on TikTok. She recovered from an eating disorder herself. She now has a book. And sometimes I invite her all my life because she gives professional advice to people who struggle with the same eating disorder that I do. And Jonathan, you're more than welcome to join too. If one day you would like to do a live either on TikTok, YouTube, or Instagram, to give professional advice as a dietitian to people like me who struggle with an eating disorder, I think that would be awesome too.
Absolutely. Just let me know whenever.
Yes, of course.
All right. Thank you so much, Cati, for joining. And this is the end of the podcast. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. Like I mentioned, guys, we talk for help if you need to. And listening to things like this, like a podcast that Jonathan does about eating disorders, that's a huge help for people struggling with eating disorders. But thank you so much for having me and for bringing awareness.
If you found this podcast helpful, you would definitely benefit from my binge eating freedom course in my website, bingedietitian.com. Learn more about the triggers to why you're binge eating and how to stop binge eating for good. No more food guilt, no more jumping from diet to diet, and no more shame. Go to the link in this episode for my binge eating freedom course to be one step closer to being binge free, starting today.